purpose of a written report is to educate, inform, guide decision-making by presenting the results of a project, an analysis, a research, an investigation, etc., etc., that has been conducted within a particular understudy. In this case, an understudy can be an organization, a facility, a task or activity within an organization, etc., etc. And in this video, we are going to be unpacking the key sections that are part of an executive report. This is a report that is supposed to be presented to senior leadership within an organization, okay? So it's got to be very well done. It's got to be clear, concise, and actionable. So we want to get it right. So we're going to be unpacking on those critical sections that must be part and parcel of an executive report. We're also going to be touching on a case scenario whereby we're going to have a facility as an understudy, and the activity that's going to be conducted that is supposed to be presented, the result of it is supposed to be presented to executive, is going to be a security survey. So we're going to touch on the key sections that must be in an executive report, and then we're going to see how that would play out in such a scenario. If we were to do a security survey within a facility, how would we present our results through a written report to the executive, okay? So I hope you're going to stick around until the end of it so that you can get to learn a thing or two. Now, welcome to Security Nuggets Podcast, your one-stop channel for security risk insights and perspectives. And I'm your host, Ashley, always happy to see you here. And without any further ado, let's delve right into it. So what are the sections, what are the key sections that must be included in a report that is supposed to be prepared and written for presenting to the executive? What must be included? The first section is the content. Now, in this section, we are going to have the sections that are going to fall under the report highlighted there, well tabulated, as well as the topics and subjects that are going to be presented, as well as their page numbers, all right? So usually you come and input the page numbers when you're done writing your whole report, okay? That's when you come and put the page numbers. The second section that is supposed to be in the executive report is a brief overview of the understudy. So we should have a section that captures a brief overview of the particular understudy. For instance, if the understudy is an organization, there needs to be a brief overview of that organization in terms of what's the organization context, what does the organization do or focus on, what's its core purpose for business, all right? Which is its area or region of operation, where is it located, things like those, but make it brief, all right? That section is the section that has the scope and the terms of reference. And this section is very important because what it does is that it highlights the reason why the activity at hand was being conducted and who authorized it to be conducted, all right? Again, what were the terms of reference? What are the parameters around which this activity was supposed to be conducted? Where were the boundaries? Which areas were we not supposed to exceed in the process of undertaking this activity? All right? So that is what we highlight in that section of the scope and the terms of reference, all right? Now, the fourth section, we have the executive summary section. This is a very important section because what it does is that it compresses the body of the report and puts it within this executive summary, making sure that whatever is highlighted there is only what is of priority and what is important to see executive. And it should not exceed a page or two, all right? So it's a very critical section within the executive report. That executive summary is very important, all right? And then the fifth section, all right, that we are supposed to have. And now when you get to the fifth section of the report, you're now coming to the body of the report. The report now starts to form. You start forming the body of the report, which means that the biggest chunk of the report is in this section. The bulk part of the report is in this section. This is where you go and expound on what you had captured in the executive summary. Now you go and expound on it in depth, okay? So in the sixth section, as we now formulate the body of the report, we are going to have another section that goes and expounds further on the understudy. It now gives a good overview of the understudy in line with the activity of focus. All right. Now remember, in section 2, we had a section where we had an overview of the understudy, but this was very generalized. Remember, it was very generalized. We were just covering the context of the business of the organization, what they do, where they are, and they are located. All right. But now in this section of 6, we are going to highlight another overview. And in this case, it is going to align with the activity of focus, all right? The activity that we highlighted in the scoop section, all right? So we come and do another overview, presenting the organization, aligning it with the key activity that we are now conducting, the activity that we were authorized to do, to undertake, and we have finished, and now we are presenting the results of that outcome through this written report. We are now going to present and highlight management key concerns. Like for any activity to be conducted, for any authority, any person of authority or leader executive to give you a go-ahead as an expert or a professional to undertake a certain activity, whether you're doing it as an investigation or an analysis or a research, as a project, whether you're doing it in either way, there's a reason why you've been authorized to go ahead and do it. There were issues of concern. There were contentious issues that led to that, that led to that authorization being given and the need of that activity to be conducted. Because what this does is it ensures that your report aligns with the management's concerns. And again, it makes sure that your report aligns with your organization's goals, because many times your management concerns are aligned with the goals. They come from a point of the issue that is happening is affecting attainment of the organization goals, and it needs to be looked into. So in this section, you need to demonstrate that you understand the management concern, and in so doing, you conducted the activity at hand in alignment with their concerns, and by so doing, aligning the activity of the report with the organization goals. I hope you can understand how those two come, how those two are interconnecting. All right. In most reports, this tends to be disregarded. All right. But make sure that you are including a section that highlights the management key concerns aligned to the activity at hand, presenting to them, because it is aligned with their concerns. It doesn't go out of that. It is aligned with their, where you are highlighting the specific management concerns. You have taken a chunk of that and put it in the executive summary. All right. You have taken a chunk of that and compressed it and put it in the executive summary, because they may not have time to read the whole report, but they, at least when they capture that in the executive summary, they'll know that where you were conducting your activity, the one that you authorized to conduct, you made sure to align that activity with their concerns, okay? Now, the eighth section is the methodology, all right? This section is very important. The methodology section is very important because what it does is it highlights the techniques and tools that you used while conducting the activity at hand. How did you go about it? How did you arrive to your recommendations? How did you arrive to your findings and conclusions? And this is a very important part because you now have the opportunity to present the tools and techniques that you used in your activity, all right? The methodologies that you used in your activity. And this is again a very important section, all right? Because this is where you provide clarity to the readers, and in this case, your executive, all right? If they get a sense of inadequacy in the information or data you are presenting in the report, or they get a sense of inaccuracy in terms of what you're presenting to them, they will be skeptical. They will be very skeptical with what you're presenting to them, all right? So this gives you a chance, this section gives you a chance to present your methodologies to prove to them that the activity at hand was conducted through some of the best tools and techniques and concepts, all right? And that the results that you're providing and the recommendations that you're making and the conclusion that you're making is based on the fact that you've used the right methodologies to arrive to those conclusions and recommendations, okay? The ninth section is where we have the findings and the recommendation. This is a very important section as well, because what it does is it gives you the opportunity to present your findings while you are conducting that activity that you were authorized to undertake. And you adopted your methodologies, you know, your tools and techniques to partake in the activity, all right? What did you find in the process? This is where you highlight the findings, okay? Aligned to the activity at hand. You highlight the findings, okay? And then you go ahead to present your recommendations, all right? You present your recommendations. So this is also a very important section. Last but not least, the 10th section is where we have the appendices. The appendices. Now, this is a section whereby if we have any additional attachments that we may have referenced in the report, this is where we come and attach them in the appendices. And if we have any subsidiary attachments, any additional information, any illustrations or any diagrams or tables or models, we come and attach them there, all right? And it is also a very important, section, because what it does is instead of you filling your report with graphs and tables and, you know, making it very complex for your readers, it gives you an opportunity to present those illustrations and graphs separately, all right? And if there's need to have a look at them, they can always go to the appendices and do that, okay? Now, let's put it into context. Let's apply the sections that we've highlighted into an actual scenario, all right? Now, let's assume that the understudy is an organization in the shipping industry. This is an establishment that is in shipping and logistics. Let's assume that it is located within a port area, all right? And let's also establish that the activity at hand that we are going to be conducting to warrant a written report being presented at the end of it is a security survey. That is the activity at hand, okay? So here we are assuming that we have conducted the security survey within the organization's establishment. And this is an organization that is in the shipping industry at the port. And it is time for us now to represent the results of that security survey activity, the results of the outcome. We want to present that through a written report to our executive. So in our report, we're going to have the first section, which is going to have the content table, where we're going to have all the subjects and topics that we are going to be highlighting and presenting in the report. The section that these subjects and topics are going to fall under, as well as the pages where they are going to fall under. So after the content, we are going to have another section whereby we are going to briefly share an overview of that organization in terms of what the organization does and its area of operation, why it does what it does, and its area of operation and activity. And then when we do that, we are now going to come to the third section of establishing the scope and the terms of reference, all right? The scope being that the activity at hand that was conducted was a security survey, and it was conducted for this and this reason, and this purpose, and it was authorized by Executive A or Director B, depending on the leadership structure in that organization, okay, and who authorized this to be done, all right? And again, under this section of the scope in terms of reference, we are also going to highlight the security survey that we conducted. We conducted it within what parameters? Was it based on the physical security systems? Or are we also looking at the digital domains, where we were looking at digital information, where we were looking at cybersecurity as well? I mean, where were the parameters? What were we supposed to do and what were we not supposed to do when conducting the security survey as the activity at hand, okay? And then after that section, we now go to section 4. Our report is going to have a section 4, which is going to incorporate the executive summary. And in this executive summary, all right, we are going to start off by highlighting our brief outcome, all right? Having conducted the security survey, we were able to establish these findings, all right? And it clearly states the facts on the ground. That is what that does. It clearly states the facts on the ground, and it provides the recommendation, all right? And because you might find so much on the ground when you're doing the security survey, stick to the priorities. Stick to the priorities. Don't come and highlight everything within the executive report. Just focus on the critical aspects, the priorities, what requires key attention, all right? Otherwise, if you come and put everything there, then you're not going to be able to stick within that restriction of 1 or 2 pages of the executive summary. So we're going to stick to the critical aspects, the key risks, after we did the security survey. Okay, and once we come and highlight that, we are now going to come and present our methodology. How did we arrive to those findings and recommendations? What are the methods that we used? Now, in this case, the activity was a security survey, all right? So what a security survey does, and the purpose of a security survey, it is conducted to establish the vulnerability or the extent of exposure within an understudy, all right? So the methodologies that we used and we have highlighted, and we are going to highlight in the executive summary, are going to express to the executive that this is how we went about it to arrive to our conclusion and findings, all right? So in this case, being a security survey, we are going to come and highlight the methodology, all right? 1, we did a threat assessment process that helped us identify and establish the critical assets within your organization, how they function, and the infrastructures that they function along, and their interdependencies, and the impact level if they were to be disrupted or crippled or destroyed or stolen, okay? And using the threat assessment process, we were able to identify the most critical assets within your organization. And through the threat assessment process, we were also able to determine the target threat scenarios, all right? And now the second methodology that we used was a vulnerability assessment process that helps us identify the existing baseline security measures that you have in place, the existing controls within the organization. And we were able to identify the potential exposure, the areas of deficiency, all right, that require mitigation or attention. By using that methodology of vulnerability assessment, we were able to do that, all right? And the other methodology was that we also used a security risk analysis process that helps us establish and rank the high priority risks, okay? And by establishing the high priority risks, now we were able to recommend ideal mitigation action plans that we have recommended to you in this report, okay? And this is a very important section because sometimes management gets very skeptical with the recommendations you're making, all right? Because they are not sure that you have based that on accurate information or accurate research or credible information or credible research. So this provides you with an opportunity for you to present a methodology, okay, that will make them confident at the end of it, a methodology that will be based on sufficient and credible information. Then under the executive summary section for our case scenario example report, we are going to highlight the existing conditions, exposure, and recommendations, all right? And again, we are going to stick to the critical, all right? If in the process of us conducting a security survey, we establish some critical conditions or extreme exposure, then those are the ones that we are going to highlight in the executive section. Now, in the next section of the body of the report, now this is where we are going to be delving right deep. Now, for example, this being a security survey, this being the activity of focus here being a security survey within the organization that is a shipping organization located within the port. In this case, under the body of the report, one of the things that we're going to have is we're going to have an overview, an external crime analysis overview through a geopolitics analysis, and as well as an internal crime overview, whereby we are going to be looking at the potential insider threats that could be targeted to that organization, all right? Again, still under the body of the report, we are going to again focus on the specific management concerns. When we were having that meeting with the organization, when they were authorizing us to go ahead and do the security survey, which were their areas of concern? And obviously, their areas of concern are based on real-time issues, issues that are happening within the organizations or have happened within the organizations, or issues that are happening within neighboring organizations that are in the same niche and context, okay? So their concerns could be based on different factors. So in this section of specific management concerns, okay, you are basically highlighting management concerns against your findings. What have you found on the ground? All right. Should those concerns be justified, right? So you highlight that. But also remember, we have highlighted a section of the specific management concerns under the executive summary. We highlighted that as well under the executive summary within this report as well, all right? And the other thing that we are going to do is we are going now to come and list down the methodologies. For instance, I mentioned one of them being the threat assessment process. In our threat assessment process, okay, which were the critical assets identified, what were their functions, what were the infrastructures, the interdependencies, what are the controls within existing controls? You know, how are they strong or weak? Are they sufficient? Are they inadequate? Are they adequate? You highlight that in that section, and then what is the level of impact if these critical assets were affected? What is the degree of impact towards the organization? You come now and highlight that in that section and tabulate it. Okay, you can use good visuals and illustrations. Okay, again, the other process we highlighted is mapping out potential scenarios under the threat assessment process. Highlight them there, highlight the threat scenarios, and also demonstrate why you have arrived to that decision that that is a target threat towards that organization, okay? And then highlight the other methodology, which is the vulnerability assessment process. What are the existing security controls? How are they? What's the status? Are they valid? Are they valid? Are they reliable? You know, how are they? And also highlight the measurement criteria you're using. How are you measuring their validity and reliability? Okay, highlight that in this section under the body of the report. All right, and get to justify why you feel like the controls that are in place are not sufficient, all right? Or they are lacking at what I mean, that like they are lacking totally, and other mitigation measures need to be adopted, right? And then when you're done with the methodologies and mapping out your the way you went around to conducting your security survey, all right? You can now go to the next step. Also, I would like to mention that the body of the report is also an area that gives you the opportunity to demonstrate your expertise as a professional. Now, this being a security survey, we want to believe that whoever is doing that kind of activity is a security expert or a security professional. So it gives you the opportunity, it provides you the opportunity to demonstrate your expert background and your capabilities. And you can even go ahead and mention some of the concepts that you have based your conclusions on. Like, for instance, when you do your vulnerability assessment process and you're recommending controls, you can mention that based on one of the security designs or concepts of layered security, you know, we've come to the conclusion and findings that the security measures you have in place or the controls you have in place are not well layered. And because they are not well layered, they've left room for they've left so much room for exposure that can be used and viewed as an opportunity for an adversary, whether external or internal. So get to use your capacity and expertise. This is where you demonstrate those concepts to them. Still under the body of the report, we are now going to present our findings on the ground, and we are also going to present the actual conditions on the ground, the exposure, the areas of exposure, as well as our recommendations. And now here we get to list all of them. Remember, in the executive summary, we were only highlighting the critical conditions, the critical exposures, okay? But under the body of the report, in this section of highlighting the findings and making our recommendations, we are now going to list everything down, okay? When you're done with this section of the body of the report, now you can go to the next section of the appendices, where now you come and attach any additional information. This is where you attach your graphs. Like in the security risk analysis process, this is now how you come and attach your heat map that maps out the risk and ranking. What risks are high priority, what risks of medium priority, what risks are low priority. This is where you come and attach such a risk map, okay? This is where, again, you come and attach any graphs that you might have, all right? If during your geopolitics analysis, you came upon some tabulated information that is worth considering in the process of a security survey, this is where you come in at it. Because what this additional information does, it supports your argument. The argument you're making, it supports it. And they can refer to that. All right. It just builds up on your report. Okay. So that was just a case example. All right. And being a security professional, I had to use a security activity to correlate this with the initial key sections that we must include in a report that is supposed to be presented to the executive. I hope you now have an idea of how to write an executive report and the areas that you should focus on, all right? And as we wind up, I want to quickly share a few tips. For mainly the executive summary section, well, the whole report is good. The whole report is good. Every area requires undivided attention and it needs to be prioritized. But the executive summary becomes very critical for us because this being a report for the executive, the demographic of that reader makes them very busy and time constrained. So we need to give it more attention, okay? So when in this executive summary, make sure that one, you're getting straight to the point, all right? The areas of concern and discussion are critical areas that you feel are extreme and require attention. Those are the areas that you point out and you get to the point with. Also, use plain English. Don't be too complex and use technical jargons or use special terminologies that are probably security-based. They are not security experts, so try and simplify your language, all right? And then the other thing you need to do is leverage on illustrations and graphs and tables, all right? But the emphasis here is that they should be user-friendly to the reader. They should be easy. They should be good presentation visuals that are attractive to the reader and easy to interpret. And that was it for this video. And I hope to see you in our next video where we shall be covering another insightful topic, still aligned with how we can improve on our communication and thus build on our collaborative engagement with governance. And this is where we have the executive and the senior leadership. And they are very important because they make decisions that influence security management in organizations, and they also influence the execution of some of these security management programs. And until our next episode, thank you very much for watching, and goodbye for now.